I have just a few questions. As the leader of a company that was founded in the West, and a lot of its revenues come from the West, and a lot of its managers come from the West, how do you drive innovation in the world that's shifted to this part of the world and all of its implications?
That's a great question. So let me, we are in the food and beverage business, and food and beverage by definition is largely local. But then you ask yourself a question, if food and beverage is largely local, why do you need a big global company to be in the food and beverage business? Just let local companies do their thing. So what we do as a big global company is that we identify platforms and we identify processes which we are very good at, and we constantly innovate on those platforms and processes, and I'll talk about it in just a minute. But then we take those platforms and then we tailor it for local markets. So let me give you an example. We make the best, high-quality, great-tasting potato chip, Lay's potato chips, the single largest food brand in the world, okay, to die for, all right? Now, a Lay's potato chip is just a flat crisp. But in India, it could have local flavors put on it. In China, it could have seaweed, cuttlefish flavors. In the UK, it might have some sort of a ketchup flavor. In Australia, it has a Vegemite flavor. So local countries can tailor whatever they want with that product. But why we are in business is because we take the potato chip and create a platform out of it, and then we give countries the ability to tailor. So the basic message is, in the food and beverage business, we practice what we call connected autonomy. That's the first part. The second, companies like ours, which were born in the West, cannot export a Western model all the time, because the old Western models were made for big markets, a lot of standardization, and high prices. Now our expansion is coming in markets where the volumes are small, the value equation is completely different, and the infrastructure is not what exists in the West. So the challenge is to hire the best people in each of these countries and let them loose. Give them general parameters on what they cannot violate and let them go off and create a business model that's relevant to that country, that meets the value equation in that country. And the best way to think about it is, in the past we used to price to cost, now we have to cost to price. So when you think that way, in emerging markets, they do a brilliant job of costing to a price. Then imagine the power if we take that model back to the Western world, because we can disrupt ourselves in the West using a tried and tested model in the East. So this is the skill we're trying to develop in our own company by creating a borderless enterprise within our own enterprise.
It's quite a challenge, and it's got to be a struggle. Your leaders, and I guess every one of us are always searching for the best talent. Oftentimes your leaders get promoted, they advance based upon, oddly enough, something that they did in the past, not what they're going to do in the future. As you deal in this diverse world, how do you get them to embrace disruption in the way that I think you mentioned in your speech?
Yeah. So let me go back to some things we're doing on leadership development. I'm not sure we have it right, John. We're still working through it. But we are a $65-66 billion company. And we have 300,000 employees in 200 countries. Large enterprise. We are the 37th largest country in the world. If you look at our market capitalization, this is a pretty awesome company that we have. But we constantly have to make sure we're developing a leadership cadre to keep this company growing and successful. So what we've done from the CEO's office, we've identified the 300 positions in the company that are the most critical jobs that will propel the company forward. And for each of these jobs, we have identified one candidate who can take that job if this person got hit by a bus, 2 candidates who will be ready in 1 to 3 years, and 3 candidates will be ready in 3 to 5 years. So for every job, we have 5 people in the pipeline. So we have 1,500 people, and if you eliminate the overlaps, about 1,200 people that we are tracking all the time and putting through rotational assignments, putting them through learning exercises so that when they bubble up to a point when they can take a massive part of the company and run it, they have all the skills needed to be in that leadership position. And we're also putting them through action learning programs. So we might take somebody from Texas who's always been in the Frito-Lay business and say, go work on a project in Shanghai or go work on a project in India. It's difficult. And maybe they won't even contribute to that project, but they will learn. And our hope is that by exposing them to these experiences, to these situations, they'll come back a better person. That's what we're trying. We're all evolving models. The book has not been written on this topic. We are writing it as we go along.
Now, I think I learned something interesting this morning, that in India alone, you touch 2 million retailers, which, coming from the West, is fairly extraordinary. That's amazing to be able to deliver your products on a regular basis and touch that many people in that many villages and that many towns. The challenges must be extraordinary, and I was just kind of interested in how that works in a place like this where we in the advertising business are, to a great extent, used to sending out messages. We're learning how to enter into dialogue with people. You are dialoguing differently with all those people every day. It seems extraordinary. And
well, it's only 2 million. I think it's going to be 5. So,
I'm sorry.
Manu,
I
get going.
misquoted, so sorry.
But I think, just think what we can learn from a country like India, okay? Just to give you an idea, the drop size for our products here, maybe 2 or 3 bags, okay? Because big trucks don't go into these little streets and drop off product. In summer, we may have to service an account 6 or 8 times a day because the thing has to get replenished all the time. But just imagine if we could take this model and now tailor it and go to the United States and say, as our business grows, as our SKU complexity grows, there's not infinite space in the store. How can you now reset a store so that it can handle much higher velocity? And how can you create a delivery infrastructure, much like what they do in India, to service the accounts differently? So I look at the India experiment and say, or the India business, and say, what a great learning lab for us to lift and shift this model to markets that never thought they could learn from the East. So I'm actually full of hope, optimism, and excitement.
That's fabulous, and it's quite a learning experience.
Can I ask you a question,
Yeah,
John?
please. I knew this would happen.
No, I mean, look, I'm dying to know. Do you believe Omnicom as an advertising agency is changing rapidly for the new world?
Yes, and the book has not been written.
How about something original?
Yeah. I got away with it. One final question. I know you're tight for time. As you look forward over the next couple of years, investments outside of the United States, what do you envision for PepsiCo in order to accomplish many of the things that you discussed today?
Yeah. Look, the growth in the global economy is happening in the Middle East and the East, Latin America. That's where the explosive GDP growth is happening. And the Western world will always be a big source of business, but the explosive growth is happening in those markets. Unfortunately, in today's world, every company in the West is looking for companies to partner with or buy in these markets, so valuations are crazy. So we constantly look for little tuck-in acquisitions that you can buy and build from, or we look to make organic investments. So I wish PepsiCo today had 60% of its business from developing and emerging markets.
I know that you're tight for time. I'm sure somebody else will thank her. You don't know how lucky you are to have this woman here. You know her name. She's an extraordinary leader, and thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you.